In the modern world of toy collecting, independent toy makers are leading the landscape in today's day and age. And Horsemen Studios have definitely been leading the charge. All right, I flubbed my opening lines already. We're off to a great start. Now, but I do want to ask, and as part of today's panel, what can we learn from the toys that the Horsemen Studios have been making and their way of doing business, as well as their unique but also growing fan base? So once again, I'd like to welcome everyone to this edition of the Toy Connections online live stream, or TKO, and we've got a big panel and a rocketing agenda to talk about today. Got my one Mythic Legions representation up here. The rest are downstairs. You can tell I'm up in the bedroom today as opposed to downstairs with the collection, but that's okay. We roll with it. So whether you're a collector of Four Horsemen's Mythic Legions, whether you're getting into their new Figura Obscura line or their new Cosmic Legions line, we're here to talk about it. Now, I'm going to bring some friends in, and I got a total of 5 of us on the stream here today. So first person I'm going to bring on is the person who actually wrote up that very well written introduction that I just recited, because he happened to put it on the story of his Instagram page, and he's a big Mythic Legions fan. He's been here before. Brick something, welcome back to TKO.
Sorry, I just got the troll to sleep. Give me a sec. My bad. One sec.
All right.
Super cute. Hold on. All right. There you go. Sorry, they sleep like a log. How's it going, everybody? Thanks again, Ken, for having me on. And you did a perfect job reading that. Look at that. It's like I wrote it with your voice in mind.
A lot of times I don't know what I'm going to say until you see the countdown screen. Well, actually, the first few TKOs, I'd make notes for myself. Then I started winging it. And then you put that up on your story. I'm like, that's what I'm going to say. And there I am trying to read the line off of the private chat. And I'm like, no, I'm not good scripted when live. Yeah, I learned that the hard way. So anyway.
Morning, everyone.
Morning/afternoon, Brick, and your microphone looks nicer than mine. We're gonna have to do something about that. I'm just joking. All right, I'm gonna bring the rest of our panel on. This individual is a big Mythic Legions fan, big comics fan, goes live every single Thursday. He's been on. Actually, he was just on this channel about a month ago, and I believe he just passed 700 subscribers on his channel. So he'll correct me if I'm wrong on any of that. But Dom from Toy DOMination. Welcome back, my friend.
Hey, what's up, man? I don't have any crazy gag this time because I've been solo dad this week. So just getting them in front of the babysitter/TV was a big of a challenge. So sorry to disappoint you, Ken, but really glad to be here. I'm excited to talk Mythic Legions.
For those who forget, last time we were talking collecting philosophies, and he literally had this clear plexiglass screen. He put it over his camera and he wrote this weird E=MC² formula and said, okay, we've solved all the myths about toy collecting, so we can end the stream now. And I'm like, okay, good. I need a nap anyway. But we kept going for another 90 minutes. So I don't know how that works. But yes. And if there was such thing as an Iron Man of streaming, this gentleman who's been here a bunch of times on this channel never seems to say no when I invite him on. But he streamed for 4.5 hours last night on his Ozstradamus Toyz live, and does a monthly Legions class, and also is a co-host of Toy Frenzy, one of the hardest working people I've met in this toy community YouTube social media space. But Ozstradamus Toyz was up late and up early today. Welcome back, buddy.
What's up, everybody? Glad to be back on TKO, even if for once it's bright and early for my world anyway. God, it feels great to be back.
It is, and I appreciate all you coming on here. I mean, well, you know what? I'm going to bring my last guest on, and you know what? You accepted late, Adam, so I have no grand introduction for you. By the way, everyone, this is Adam.
Happy to be picked last. Just happy to make the team.
Come on.
You know.
So, in gym class when we were kids, you know the story. Everybody gets picked, and you're, please don't pick me last. Please don't pick me last. And all of a sudden, oh, I was picked last. What the hell? Now I got to work extra hard. And speaking of, when you get picked last and you end up having to work your tail off, show us that thing again.
His tail?
Oh my god.
Yeah, the tail. Yeah. You can show us the tail later, or you can show us the head of the moose now.
I fully regret not getting that.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yep, the flock.
Actually, the story behind this is last Sunday I was talking to these gentlemen individually. I'm like, we should do a Mythic Legions stream. And Brick, Dom, and Oz were like, I'm in. And I'm like, well, let me talk to Adam, because he was like the first person I talked about doing a Mythic Legions stream, but he had like work and family stuff. So he got back to me on Friday, which is totally fine. But, you know, when everyone else got back to me within 5 minutes, I'm sitting there. I'm like, I got to bust somebody's balls. And, you know, for somebody who has always been reliable to me, he knows I'm just joking around. So it's all good. Plus, he's the one who pointed me out to eCollectibles and having good pricing and discount codes in Canada online. Mike, I think you're watching the stream, and Adam is kind of your wingman on eCollectibles and Mythic Legions and Four Horsemen product.
I got bullied into Mythic Legions actually by Mike, so that's
that's okay. You were bullied into Super 7 Turtles by me, and then
buy it, man, buy it.
Yeah.
No, Turtles was Mike too. Mike's a massive Ninja Turtles fan.
That's true. I was talking to you around the time that I started, and I can't remember who got who into what. Now it's all blurred in my head.
It was about the same time. We were both sort of right on the edge, and I think we kind of pushed each other over the edge.
Okay, so we enabled each other like two addicts.
Yeah, we
I
both
guess
drank
what it
the
is.
Kool-Aid. We both drank the Kool-Aid.
My Kool-Aid is my Kool-Aid is strawberry flavored. What's yours?
Grape.
All right, it's all
or
good.
cherry, depending.
We're reliving our childhood right now. All right. Why don't we say hi to the chat, and let's jump into what we were going to discuss today. So try to do this quickly as we can. Largo's Lair, who just passed 100 subs and has a stream later today. We got Payne's Toy Samples. We got TJC, Radical Toys, Adam. We got Sean Scavarna. Who else we got here? We got Damon. We got Jeff Morris, Emerald Knight Photos, Ozstradamus Toyz, and Brick Something, making sure that we're not lonely here. Although we're far from lonely now, which is good. Figuratively Speaking is in the house. Highly Articulated has also joined us / double joined us. NSFW. Pickle D, Rolando Flores, Robert Monti, Boba Hicks out in Ireland. Who have we got here? I think that's almost everyone. Of course, you scroll enough, the chat jumps on you. You gotta love StreamYard. And we got John Ingles. All right.
I was already laughing at Pickle D's comment of the moose. It's the Canadian horse from Mythic Legions.
Oh, did I pull that one up, or did I pull up Pickle D's other comment and just not read it?
It's perfect.
You know what? So sometimes when you're going through this chat, you just look at the names and you forget what they're actually like. You don't always
that they're people. That they're actual people.
Well, I mean, obviously they're people.
Bunch of chatbot GTs out there. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to boost your your what do you call it? Your count. You just buy a bunch of bots, right? So there's no way that's got to be economically worth it. And we got a couple people showing up right about now. So thank you for making it. All right. Gentlemen, obviously we didn't grow up with Mythic Legions unless someone here is, much younger than they actually look.
This beard's actually fake. If I shave it off, you would all see I'm actually a 12-year-old. So.
and it's actually hard to keep up that voice when you're trying to, it's like the crank call voice when you're prank call. What's the word? When you're calling your teacher to say, sorry, Oz can't make it to class today. So at some point your voice will crack. You'll hit puberty midstream, and we'll all have a nice laugh.
It'll happen.
It'll happen at some point in our lives. Yeah.
I shave the head so I look older.
Soon enough.
Look, I'd like to hear from you, fine gentlemen, what your gateway. I'll say gateway drug, because you understand the word picture and the analogy, into how you got into Four Horsemen and by extension Mythic Legions or Cosmic or Figura Obscura. I'm going to assume it's Mythic Legions mostly for all of us. Product. Like, what was your gateway to get in? Because obviously we didn't grow up with it. When we were collecting toys in the modern age, we were either into Marvel Legends or G.I. Joe or Transformers or Motu or just comic books in general, right? What was your gateway drug? Let's go around the clock here, clockwise. Brick, how'd you find yourself getting into this stuff?
So First off, the pump was primed, right? With fantasy growing up, whether it was like, Conan, of course, He-Man, and, all of these sort of Excalibur back in the day, Beastmaster, and so on. So I was super into that kind of stuff. Fast forward, there's this thing called the internet, and I wasn't in a position to be buying toys during this period, but I started hearing about this line, right? Oh, there's this crazy Kickstarter. I was like, what's that about? Because I grew up in the 80s, going to a store, whether it was a Gemco or whatever, looking at all these figures and being like, oh, that's cool, and watching cartoons and getting into it. So this was this whole new thing, as you sort of alluded to. Are you raising your hand, sir?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt. You're a teacher, so I knew that you'd appreciate that.
No one ever raises their hand, by the way, but go ahead.
I know. You mentioned the Kickstarter. The first Kickstarter or the Advent of Decay Kickstarter? 2015 or 2018?
It was 2015, actually. Okay. I think people were chatting about it, sort of geeky, more in the know friends, because I was doing Lego, right? And I wasn't doing action figures anymore at that point. And then, so I just sort of heard about this idea, and I was like, what's this about? And then someone hit me to the fact that it was the Four Horsemen, whose work I was familiar with through like the, McLaughlin, growing up, etc. Anyway, I think that the gateway drug where I eventually sort of like leaned into the idea of buying them was Masters of the Universe. I think there's a lot of us that had those tribute figures, right? Once I started seeing those, my ears perked up. I was like, oh, those are cool. Those remind me of things that I like. And oh my God, those sculpts are like way better than the toys that I remember. But really, it was the first time I purchased was an in-stock sale in I think they were like February of 2022, actually not that long ago, was when I sort of got my hands on my first figure, and those were like a dwarf and a goblin builders. And anyways, it's been addicted since then.
The reinforcements wave.
Yep.
So you've been collecting Legions for about a year. So it's February 2023 now. Mm-hmm. Happy anniversary to your enabled addiction.
Yeah, this is the intervention. Is that right? Is that what this is?
No.
Oh,
this is the
enabler.
Yeah. This is passing the thing around and telling you it's not
make
that
even
bad.
worse.
Right. So my name is Brick something, and I'm an addict.
Yeah.
Hi, Brick.
This is the bar for the alcoholics. You've come to the wrong spot. You're trying to recover. Yeah.
All right. Well, fantastic story. And Adam, I do appreciate you like clarifying exactly what Kickstarter, because the Four Horsemen have done more than one with their sort of like ambitious. Anyway, I also want to say a quick hello to a great Mythic Legions reviewer here, who actually I first talked to him yesterday. He's part of the reason this stream happened, because I was trying to look up the reviews, the recent reviews on the Unknown one, as well as the Furious 4, and of course Dorklair's stuff comes up. And speaking of enabling, okay, I haven't quite caved yet, because the Figura Obscura is coming back up with the Headless Horseman. But check out Dorklair if you want to see some great Mythic Legions reviews. And all the gentlemen here do Mythic Legions reviews to some degree, whether it's live or box openings. But, for like the 10 to 12 minute, like, do I want this figure or not? This is one of my recent enablers, and we chatted for the first time yesterday. So I appreciate you tuning in, Dorklair. Okay, so we were on the enablement of Mythic Legions and the anti-intervention. That really should be the title of this stream, the anti-intervention.
One of us.
So yeah, absolutely. as we carry on, Dom, give us your sob story that we will have zero sympathy for, but totally relate about Mythic Legions.
So first I'll go check out Dorklair. I'm pretty sure I'm familiar with them. I'm not sure I'm sub, so I'll go sub, and then everybody please sub these other guys that are here now too, because give a little like for Ken too.
Yeah. And did I get that right, Dom? You just passed 700 subs. Is that?
Yeah, man. Yeah,
correct?
no, thanks for the shout out. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, we met like 6 months ago or something, and like your channel has like more than doubled since that time, which is kind of cool. But anyway.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's cool. Not to pull focus onto my own channel, but to answer your question, so I got in on the first Kickstarter, and what got me into that was I was subbing the Motu Classics line when they were coming out. But I was cherry picking like crazy, because I I didn't get the full. Well, I did start getting the actual subscription, but I was like, I don't care about Dragster. I don't care about Snoutspout. I really was just cherry picking to get some of the more fantasy type driven and less of the weird, sci-fi mix, whatever one. So once Mythic Legions came out, because I was on He-Man forums or whatever, once that came out, I was like, well, that's pretty much what I want. So I went into that. I didn't do all in because, again, I was cherry picking. I didn't want the golden skeleton. I didn't want certain ones. So I did most of them and then doubled on a few of them, like Otho, for example. I wanted 2 of those because of the diversity. And I remember actually Joe came out to visit at my house. So I was in Korea at the time. So then like my son was born and then like we moved and I got back to the US and Joe came out to visit and the Mythic Legions hit. So I got to open him up with him at the time. This is way before we were streaming or whatever. And he was just blown away. And I was like, I am committed to this line. Like as financially as I can, I am committed to this line. So like, yeah. So I in from the first wave. And then I've hopped every now and then because like sometimes they pop out a mini wave. I'm like, I don't have $300 right now for Mythic, man. So whenever I can.
All right. It's a great. We all feel the same way. I'm going to give a shout out to my coworker in the chat here, Brendan G. All right. So I've heard He-Man and He-Man helping enable. There's not to summarize. I know both of you said a lot more than that, but I'm noticing a trend here and the direction I'm going. Oz, I know you're not a He-Man fan at all.
No,
I mean, you hate He-Man about as much as I hate Transformers, so we have that in common. And as much as Adam hates G.I. Joe Classified, but so Oz, tell us about Mythic Legions and how it's better than Masters of the Universe and Transformers and everything in the universe, or don't just tell us how you got into it.
Well, I mean, for me, it was years ago. I'd started to see these things pop up from 4 Horsemen, who I've always admired, from Spawn to Masters of the Universe 2000X to Classics. And even though I was very, very late to Classics and finding out about it, heard these guys had this new project coming up with Mythic Legions. And I was just like, these things look awesome.
Yeah.
I can't get into them, though. I just do not have the money. And resisted for years. And just recently having got back into toy collecting with Origins, fantastic. I'm like, these are great. These are nice and affordable. I just can't find them anywhere. And then all of a sudden, Figura Obscura pops up with this headless horseman. And my favorite holiday is Halloween. And everything about the figure screamed Halloween.
Not a holiday.
And I'm like, I need this. Completely missed out on it, though. Didn't have the way or the means. And a very special gentleman who's in the chat, one of the co-hosts of Legions Class with Brick and myself, Sean Scavarna, was like, dude, I got you. And the very first anything that I got from 4 Horsemen Studios now was this headless horseman.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, this thing is gorgeous and beautiful. Out of all of my recent toy collecting, it's probably my prize piece because it is just so phenomenal. And I started talking to Sean and Brick and then Jesse Arnold from Just Shelve It, who's really big in the Cabal community. And I was like, would you guys mind coming on and let's talk about Mythic Legions? And then Sean's like, yes, absolutely. We're going to do this thing. We started this class and I fell in love with everything Mythic Legions after that class. And yeah, exactly. He wanted somebody to hang out with down there that's from Baltimore because me and Sean are both from the same hometown in Baltimore. He was like, I need you. So we went ahead and we started up the class. And then by the end of that night, Sean's like, I'm sending you some stuff. And then just over that time, I've been all in. We did a big thing about the Necronominus wave and pre-orders. And then those glorious men at 4 Horsemen Studios just re-released the Unknown one, which I've just unboxed a little bit this morning, and we'll do more as we talk today.
All right.
Man, I got a question after Adam goes about 2 of the things you guys said. I'm dying here, but
you know what? Why don't you ask him? We'll see how long it takes to answer.
Yeah, my answer is going to completely break this pattern, so you may as well ask him now.
So it was asking. Well, no, so it was asking if you got into these late, like how painful is that to see all the figures that came prior and that there's just without paying like $600 or $300 that you can't get those. You can only go forward unless you're willing to really pay. Like, is that a barrier to
Adamon and Keltis?
Okay, no,
bug me a bit. I tried to I know he's been much busier lately. Now that he's working full time for the Four Horsemen, but about a little over a year ago, I talked to Jeremy Gerard, and I was like, I hate to be that guy, but are we going to get Adamon and Keltis? And he said, well, they were like exclusive to, I forget exactly what they were exclusive to, but they were like, someone can correct me, but can add to it, but they were like an exclusive to like the group that backed early or something like that. Yeah. And what were they exclusive to?
So their PowerCon releases.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Sorry.
Yes. They've typically come out so far. The pattern can always change. They keep changing the pattern, which kind of throws everybody for a loop. They typically come out with the All-Stars wave. There's been like 2 with each All-Stars wave, and there's been 5 All-Stars waves. Mm-hmm. They can't re-release them because they don't want to get hit with copyright infringement things. And so far, because they've kind of done them as a PowerCon exclusive release, that's a one-off, that they don't kind of dwell on them. They've been safe, and I think because of their history, they have a little bit more leeway than some other companies or some other people do, but they can't re-release them for that reason.
Yeah, so he basically said
it again, then you're tempting fate, I think.
Yeah, he basically said never say never, and then I was kind of like, well, maybe they can release them in kind of a different form, and he didn't really comment on that, but like, Atlas already kind of looks like Adamon from the from I guess what's House of the Noble Bear faction. Yep. I'm trying to not deep cut here, but like testing my own knowledge here.
Barbarians.
Yeah, the barbarians. Okay, and sorry, I don't know if anyone else had an answer they wanted to add to that.
Well, I mean,
we can circle back if we.
I didn't mean to cut off Adam. I'm sorry.
I'm curious to hear Adam, and at some point I want to hear him speak more about Halloween, but that's later.
No, I know, but he's about to swerve us, so maybe let's hear Dom's second question first, and let's.
No, that was it. I just because it just like I have a regret for missing one mini wave, and like I always look back and like, oh, what could have been. And so I have that fear of missing out every time they drop something. I'm like, it's now or I'm never getting this figure again, and like. That's the decision I make when I pass or buy in. It's like, I'm going to get this figure now. Or luckily, I did get that Keldor dude for $45 at MythicCon. I was shocked.
What?
Shocked.
You got Keldor for $45.
Shocked. And I was like, hey, man.
Okay.
Like,
you want to make some money? I'll give you 75 plus shipping right now.
Yeah, no, I love them. So, but yeah, I was shocked. And like I explained to my wife, I'm like, you don't understand what this is. Like, but yeah, that fear of missing out, like every time I get like this heart seizes moment when I see them releasing something new, like, am I okay with never getting this, or am I buying in now? So,
yeah. All right. Fair enough. Adam, you've got a big, even though you're not a wrestling fan, but you've got a big wrestling style swerve for us to close out this initial part of the topic.
Yeah, this may surprise people. Probably not you guys, because I've spoken to you before. I'm not coming. I didn't come at these from a Motu background, which until recently I didn't even know what that meant. Masters of the Universe. It was always He-Man to me, and I wasn't. Yeah. So for me, the sort of the reference point was Lord of the Rings, and then other kind of fantasy properties. So I think my sort of interest in these is different than a lot of people's, and that I'll sort of explain that a little bit more too. But I only got into these recently, and like Brick, I was aware of the Kickstarter. 2015 was kind of right when I was getting back into toy collecting of action figures. I was already doing Lego, just like Brick, and I saw them. I'd never backed a Kickstarter. I was kind of like, I don't know how a Kickstarter works. Also, being in Canada, you look at the shipping and the duties and all that kind of stuff. And by that point, I ordered 1 or 2 things from Big Bad Toy Store. And so I was like, if I don't know how much it's going to cost, I'm not getting involved. In that first wave, in that first Kickstarter, there also wasn't anything that I needed. You know what I mean? Like they were great figures, but there wasn't anything that sort of spoke to me personally. the advent of Decay Kickstarter, which was a few years later, there was a bunch of figures in that one that I was like, okay, now this is getting serious. You know, they introduced the 2.0 bodies.
Lord of the Rings, right? Yeah, that makes okay.
Yeah.
High
so
fantasy.
like Elf Ranger, once they started doing the elves, Thistlethorn is my favorite figure.
Yes.
But I mean, my interests are more in the sort of fuzzies and the critters and the elves and the orcs. And I say this all the time, but knights and skeletons don't really do much for me. So there's, you know, Dom, to your point, there's a lot of figures that come up that I go, that's a cool figure, but I don't need that. It doesn't, it doesn't do anything for me. As far as when I got into this, I actually didn't buy anything until January of 2022. Oh, wow. And it was actually seeing Alder. I was like, okay, I'm going to get an Alder because I was going to use it for a G.I. Joe classified Mountie custom, which I still have plans to do. I actually have 2 Alders, one for that and one for Mythic Legions now. But then I was like, okay, I'm going to get as much as I can sort of at retail. Like I'm going to go back as far as I can for what's available from Mike at eCollectibles. And he even had a little bit of like a little bit of a stash that he was like, okay, look, you know, we're buddies and, you know, I got a couple other things that might interest you. And so I was able to pick up a couple older figures like at retail price, not like first Kickstarter or anything like that, but I was able to get a couple of the things that I probably wouldn't have when I got into it at a good price. And then sort of went from there. What kind of happened was I was an admin in another group, or I was asked to be an admin in another group. And in that group, these guys were all kind of Mythic Legions collectors already. And I was like, there was a lot of chat about like, oh, you know, the next wave or whatever. So that was kind of what put me over the edge. It's just, I stayed out because, you know, the way that I collect and the way that I kind of do everything is a little bit obsessive. So as soon as I start with something, I don't have, with very, very few exceptions, I don't have 1 or 2 figures from a line. I have at least a shelf, if not multiple shelves. So I knew that once I went down this rabbit hole, it was gonna be an issue, and it is. So.
Yeah, the gateway drug. Yep.
And then it was like, oh, now I'm gonna be an admin in the Canadian, you know, Mythic Legions group. Now I'm gonna push.
I'm in that one.
Get an official sigil done. Like I was like all in, and I knew that I was gonna be. That's why I sort of resisted for so long.
All right.
That class, and I would say class, like knight class, rogue class, because like the 2.0 is definitely something that I felt was missing. With like, where are the leather jerkins and the light armor and the agile guys, and you know, more females. And when I saw that, like Gwendolyn, I was like, oh my, like that's probably one of my favorite female figures I've ever made. Just the face sculpt, the armor, just gorgeous. But you're right, that lighter buck, everyone was big and bulky knights and big and bulky orcs and dwarves. But for me at the time, I was like, this class is needed. But yeah, as soon as we started playing around with them, I was like, well, let me go buy other lines. Like I tried to use Lord of the Rings figures to filter in as those, but they're whatever. So I tried to filter that in. But once that other line came out, I was like, this is phenomenal. And now they're even adding more like leather and lighter, you know, no armors. I'm like, yeah. And so going back to this question again, my new inspiration to buying is playing, and then D&D, definitely like those things. I've got a show and tell here later on. I'll show one faction that my boys and I have been playing with here. So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, if anyone wants to share a screen, feel free, because I'm just about to do exactly that. And when we talk about gateway drug, most of us, other than Adam, I don't know about you, and I know they all have their own factions and lore and story behind them, but looking at the front row, I see Shira, Evelyn, Trapjaw, and Panther, obviously. And in the back, maybe you don't see it, but I very clearly see Titus and Megator.
Oh, okay. I never put that together until you showed that there.
Half of those names I don't know.
That's all good. You're talking about the Titus and Megator part?
I definitely don't know those ones.
Yeah, very obscure.
Yeah. but that's how it is. Like when you talk gateway drug, this is how I started, and then eventually you start getting characters like the actual Four Horsemen themselves, like Arethyr, etc. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going past just Motu tribute figures now.
I was today years old when Oz taught me that Four Horsemen involved in Mythic or McFarlane. I had no idea. Like every time I turn around, they're like, "Oh, Mythic Four Horsemen did that." I'm like, "Wait, what?" Like these guys are just everywhere. I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't know.
They've been in the industry for years.
Yeah, well, I knew that, but I didn't know how overlapping it was. Like Hasbro, Mattel, McFarlane, like they're everywhere. It's crazy.
I'm generally that way with like everything. I don't know who makes what, and that's comic books, toys. People are like, "Oh yeah, that was sculpted by this guy," and I'm like, "That's great. It's a cool toy." I don't know. Yeah. I didn't know who Four Horsemen were. I didn't know that people had been like following their work from classics back to McFarlane and so on and so forth. I was like, okay, that's all well and good. Like I remember a lot of those toys, but like that never even kind of went through my head. And I've said this on other streams, it's very rare where there's sort of like an overlap of like creators that I genuinely like and lines that I genuinely like. But when there is, I'm always more inclined to back them and sort of invest in it because it's like, if I know that I'm supporting somebody that I would want to go and have a beer with, it's that much better. You know what I mean? Like,
and look at Jason from Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. You'd have a beer with, I mean, I barely talk to the guy, but he seems so down to earth, right? And he'll be on the show at some point.
That he asks me not to message him anymore.
Well,
got that restraining order out,
more or less.
Speaking of welcome messages, I do want to pull this up for a moment here. Rob Zamora, thank you for the generous super chat, much appreciated. And his comment here is that his introduction to Mythic Legions was a custom kitsune or Mr. Gerard made that he saw on his page. So that's being Jeremy Gerard, the marketing and sales manager there for Horsemen Studios. Rob goes on to state here that a week later he reached out asking if he would make one, and he said yes. That was July 2021, and 46 figures later, Rob is still going strong with Mythic Legions. So speaking of the drug being strong, right? I recognize this name, 1/6 shooter. Is this not Trevor, one of the Mythic Legions? What do you call it? The photographers? I believe it is.
No, that's not Trevor.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's probably looking at that photo there and just cringing a little bit because.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. No, just to pick up real quick on the sort of horsemen of it all and the work that they've done in the past. Yeah, I don't necessarily follow those things, but that was definitely something that they sort of led with because of the Kickstarter and everything, and kind of like sharing, their sort of CV and their background. But when you look at sort of where their career path and the work that they've done, you totally see the bread trail to where they're at and kind of where that intro that you were reading earlier, Ken, comes from, right? Because really, when they did this Kickstarter, what was fascinating to me wasn't necessarily like, one, there was no lore or connection to something that was established, right? So as a kid, I born in 76, old guy. So I was like at that prime age in the 80s when they were like feeding us 30-minute commercials on Saturdays and after school. And I was like, great, I want that. I want a toy of that. I want to play with that. And I started like having these attachments to these characters and these designs, but also, who they are, what they do, etc. And so every toy that I'd gotten into was very much that, until to come back to Lego, right? If I think about how I played with Lego before they started licensing things from, say, Star Wars or whatever, they were creating their own IP that you didn't have. Like, these were classic space guys. There's the red guy, there's the blue guy, and that's about it. Create your own story, kid, right? And if you don't like the sets that we give you, take them apart and make something cooler. And so there was that piece of it right around, I sort of stopped with the action figures at a certain point, then started going with the Lego, and they had all sorts of themes that would come out. Or here's a Knights theme, here's a Pirates theme, here's a Vikings theme, and it was just like, characters, have fun.
Yeah,
and there was
absolutely.
something that clicked with me when I saw that Kickstarter. It was like, yeah, I know nothing about these, but you know what? That skeleton looks cool. You know, that knight looks cool, and I can kind of fill in the blanks. Again, wasn't in a position to buy them, but then as sort of these things started coming out, then there was again the Lego of it all, of like, oh, you can pop off their heads just like I would a minifigure. Oh, I like this helmet. Oh crap, I love that face, right? And that weapon. And so for me, there was that sort of clicking. Put that together with where they'd come from, though. It was like McLaughlin, and then the 2000X stuff, right? And then classics, right? There was a point where they were just like, hey, Mattel, check out this idea we have for a He-Man figure that they dropped at that's at Comic-Con, right? It was just sort of this figure, and everyone was like, what is that? Is that a new toy line? I don't know if folks are familiar with that history. But that was intriguing. So it was like, clearly they had the ability not just to take established IP and sort of give us more of the same, but they had this career of basically taking somebody else's IP, whether it was Todd McFarlane's or Mattel's, putting their like spin on it with the sculpts, with the paint, giving us something that felt like, even though it wasn't new, it was new. So I was a 90s comic fan, and I knew Todd McFarlane's work, and I wasn't a big Image guy, but there was something about the toys that captured my imagination in a way that was a little bit different from his artwork. Actually, I'd say they kind of pulled it back a lot more. They did a little bit of editing, and that's funny to say about McFarlane, but they did some editing and kind of made these figures look a little bit more sort of realistic. I know, again, that's silly to say. And then you move that forward to what they did with 2000X. It was just sort of like, whoa, these folks are like taking stuff I love, but in my mind, they're plussing it. They're making it better.
And that's
leveling
kind of to Adam's point too. Like I am ignorant. Like someone was like, oh yeah, I was talking to Ron Rudak. I'm like, cool. Does he stream? They're like, dude, that's G.I. Joe. I'm like, yeah, go on. Like, and it's the same thing with like,
you have a podcast?
Yeah.
What's the relevance?
With the Mythic Legions, like as soon as you start naming characters, I'm like, Barbarian with Scar, Orc with thing. Because as soon as I ripped it out of the package, I was like, goodbye, lore. And like that's gone, right? The art I kept, but like, yeah, they're all blank bucks that I go, you are now zoop, and they inform into whatever I want. Yeah, 100%. And that's once we transition here, I'll show like, how we collect, or I say we, my boys, but it's really me. Why, like how I collect, and it's different, I think, than others. So,
well, speaking of transitioning, I mean, we don't have to stick to the exact agenda today because we're having an amazing conversation here already as it is. Like a lot of times I write questions down in case, somebody's kind of shy or they're new at streaming. We got nothing but veterans. We couldn't tell by your on-camera presence or your amazing lighting background, which I can't match today because I'm in a different part of the house, other than the obese Snoopy here, who is totally not a Mythic Legions character.
He's mythical, right?
But he's mythical. He's mythical. He's mystical, and he's overweight.
I've got a question for Dom, following up on his previous question of the FOMO thing, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't follow the lore and you don't follow, the characters, doesn't that make it easier for you to just sort of pass on a figure?
No, it makes it worse because like the ice line was the one that always sticks out. The female dwarf who is short had the fur, and I was like, that's so unique, and she's like, it's a gorgeous sculpt, and look at those color combinations. I was like, I could use her for whatever, like that, because she stood out so much. And I don't even remember what was in there, but there was two more that I was like, oh, I wish I'd gotten those characters, because it's just like the Legos, like they're bucks, they're blanks, they're a tapestry for you to just be able to zoop whatever's on there. And I don't swap so much because the paint, like it's hard to mix and match a lot, because like when I've got silver on gold, I'm like, I can't unsee this, right? So there's very few times I swap pieces, but I do like that. So for me, when I see something that I'm like, that one, and that's coming in, and I can use this as a whatever, that's what it is. It's a adapter for some sort of imagination plug and play. So so now I'll never get that ice dwarf to be able to fit in here, a female ice dwarf to be able to fit in somewhere.
And also, when you're talking about like if you don't get it now, you mean like when Four Horsemen is doing their pre-order window, correct?
Yeah, because they come out at like 35 or however much, right?
Yeah.
And then later in the aftermarket, even if you go to like a third party, they're marked up. Big Bad, it's marked up again.
Yeah.
And then after that, like I did go back to Cosmic Legions and grab a couple more Cosmic Legions that I missed in the pre-order. Because like, you know what? I do want them, and I'll pay the whatever the markup was. But yeah, eBay and all that, just no chance, right?
Yeah,
So yeah.
I mean, for us in Canada, like honestly, every Mythic Legions collector that I know in Canada has ordered from Four Horsemen direct one time, even though everybody says don't do it, it'll end up costing you more in the long run.
Oh yeah, gosh.
Every one of us is like, but that can't be true. It is. It's always true.
That's terrible. I just sent somebody somebody in Canada.
For us, it's sort of like we have, in a weird way, we have a bigger window, right? Because they get revealed, they get released direct through Four Horsemen. That's usually, a month, like 30-day minimum kind of thing. So we have that much time to kind of like analyze and process and go, okay, do I need this? Do I want this? Am I buying into the hype?
Yeah.
And then the retailers open for pre-orders, right?
Yeah.
And for me and for Ken, that's going to be e-collectibles. And so then we sort of see the price that we as Canadians are going to pay, which is already more just by default, but it kind of works out to be roughly what you would get them direct from Four Horsemen. It's actually a few bucks cheaper typically per figure. And then his pre-order is a month for like the pre-order window, right? But then it's sort of like, if he gets 100 orders for a figure, he orders 130. So you still have that sort of, when they start showing up, there's still the opportunity to get them at the price that you would have gotten them at anyway.
Wow,
so I think if I was in the US, it would be a totally different story because I would feel the same way that you do, that like, okay, I have 30 days to make up my mind.
Well, they've done a good job of extending those windows because like they did one over the holidays. I'm like, what are you doing? But they extended it from like it was past
January.
Into January. I was like, thank you. Like I'm supposed to be spending on everybody else, not like hoarding my money for sorry kids, no Christmas this year because I'm getting another Mythic Legions wave that you'll see in 2 years from now. So they've done a good job of spreading those out. And when it was Kickstarter, you could always do the backer kits or whatever too.
Yeah.
But you're right. Those little ones that pop out where it's like, hey, 25 days notice. I'm like, you're killing me, man. I already spent my toy budget this month.
I was gonna jump into that. Like, how do we prioritize everything, right? Because like I want to get the Furious 4. I want to get the unknown one, but like one of my friends has been like purging his and if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I've been buying some of these like rare Japanese only release Transformers that I've not seen on the secondary market, especially locally, because usually when I find them, I have to buy them on and pay a bunch of extra shipping, right? And now my friend's buying them like he got them like bulk ordered from overseas. I can go drive and pick them up, and he's dropped the price just a little bit for me because we're basically best friends in real life. So here I am buying, a few $100s every couple of weeks to try to buy that. And then all of a sudden, Four Horsemen keeps dropping this stuff. And I'm kind of like, what do I prioritize? Obviously, the Headless Horseman for me is top priority. That's going to happen by hook or by crook. But like, that's dropping at the same time that the Unknown One's been made available again, that the Furious 4's been made available again, that the Blue Hagnon's been available again. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I want all this. I'm running out of shelf space, right? I'm running out of bandwidth. Like, forget, like, even if I had infinite funds, which who really does? Nobody does, right? I'm just out of mental bandwidth to keep up with all this. Then you got all the G.I. Joe classified reveals. You've got, I don't really do much in the way of Motu Origins right now. But like Transformers keeps coming out. A lot of the independent toy lines are still very active. Like, it's just hard to prioritize it all. But, which I'll jump into that in a sec, but I do want to pull this up as well on camera. Black Genghis KJ, thank you for the super chat. You've been on this channel a few times before, and you're always welcome on. Says here he's sending props from Stateside, and Mythic Legions is an incredible line and making me rethink my collection from here on out. Ditto for Cosmic Legions, quality over quantity. Now, KJ, you know where to find us. If you ever want to talk Mythic Legions.
If you ever want to be more enabled than you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. But KJ, thank you again.
If you need enabling on a one-on-one level, we'll help you.
we will all be able to help you on that. Now,
I mean, just to connect that comment to. Oh, sorry, you were going to bring this up.
Oh no, I was just going to say here that it sounds like Trevor is commenting that we. Sorry, is it Trevor or another alias? And maybe I shouldn't out him like that.
No, that's Trevor.
No,
that's Trevor. I know. Just glad he's watching because what do you call it?
He's always watching.
Trevor has a bot that cues him in so that he can comment when he needs to.
Right. I wish I had one of those. But he just says here that we should have a little bit of time for the Horseman and retailer and retailer wave. So hopefully the window is nice and open for us to keep buying stuff and keep enabling ourselves.
Pre-order starts next week, and it'll probably go. I think the pre-order window for retailers to get their order in is about 40 days. But then, like I said, if they use their pre-order number, and that this is, I'm pretty sure everybody does this. I work in retail, and this is how we do it. But basically, like I said, if you're a retailer and you get 100 pre-orders for something, you're probably going to order 120 or 130. So there's always going to be
right.
For people that missed it or couldn't pay, early or whatever, right? So,
especially when it's a product that'll move, right?
In stock sale, where you have 3 minutes to make up your mind, and if you hesitate, you're not getting it. It's not going to be like that. You'll be absolutely fine.
Well, Dorklair says here, advice to buy Unknown One now and Headless in April, and I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, Headless Horseman sold out really quickly last time. So
well, because this the retail exclusive wave, they're taking all the pre-orders, and based on what's ordered is what they're going to make. So Unknown One is made, those exist, and we're just buying them out right now.
There's an existing quantity of the Unknown One.
Yeah,
there's no preset quantity for the retailer wave.
Interesting.
Oh, for the Headless Horseman and the Blue Hagnon and the new Father Obscura, Figura Obscura, Father
like that
Christmas. Father Obscura.
That's like Doctor Strange's homie, Father Obscura.
Yeah. So Dorklair, if you ever want to stream on TKO sometime, same thing for you, Trevor. You're both welcome to come on and talk whatever your heart's desire. People are saying. I was
going to say Legion's Lounge is like my go-to for Legion stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right.
Drawn in.
Real quick, Ken, just to on the sort of FOMO of it all. I'm kind of with Adam in that I can resist, right? So I think, and for me, Adam, it is a lot easier to say, nah, I don't really want that one when I'm not really trying to complete a universe of existing characters that I'm attached to. But in general, I'm also not sort of a completist. I figure that's I don't know. I just don't have the endless funds to commit to that level of disappointment. And I'm just okay, I'm going to buy as I go. But to tie it back to sort of what I think Black Angus was sort of alluding to is in terms of questioning my collection and the idea of quality over quantity. The cool thing that I've seen with Mythic Legions is that I haven't felt the need to go back. There were some things that I went back, like you were saying, Dom, I want that figure.
Yeah.
But once I was hip to the fact that they're not shy from sort of going back to certain things, right? But when they do, I'm not talking really All Stars, but when they kind of create new characters and build things out, they end up being better. Right, they're learning.
100%.
They're they embrace innovation and trying to figure out how do we move forward on these things, right? So it's whether it's with the new soft goods or with the changing of the chest plates, so it's true that okay, if you have to sit out on a wave or whatever, just chill, because the next thing almost guaranteed that as folks have said, whatever will be coming out later is going to be the best thing. And the best part of that, too, is that it's also going to be the most affordable.
That's true. And so, my big complaint for the Wave 1 was that none of my big bulky dudes that came with broadswords could hold it with two hands.
Sure.
They'd stop right here, right? And I was like, and the axes were just way oversized. And this last line they put out with an actual scaled Warhammer, like not a ridiculous over fantasy, it's a real Warhammer with a pick. I'm like, that's what they used to use. Like, and then, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like for me, and then I think I even saw them holding with two hands. I'm like, that's what I want my guys to be able to do is use a broadsword or use, like, yeah, you're right. That's right. And that's like the classic, any line you collect is I'm going to buy this now. 10 years later, like, well, this is Toy Biz is trash. Hasbro's the new thing, right? So you're right. You can always be patient and wait for the other things, but I want to play now.
I know.
They're also, the FOMO and patience are two things that a lot of collectors have in very, very short supply. And they're definitely a virtue. I would say that what we've seen recently from Four Horsemen too is that we're getting version 2s of certain characters, right?
That's
we're
really
getting
cool. Yeah.
Like Sir Gideon Heaven's Brand is a perfect example. They released version 2 with the Necronominus wave. And objectively speaking, and no offense to anybody that loves their Sir Gideon Heaven's Brand original figure, version 2 is objectively a much better figure. It has better articulation. The sculpt is better. It's got soft goods. Whether you like soft goods or not, that's sort of, might change your opinion. The head sculpt is better. You get, multiple, like you get a helmeted and unhelmeted. His weapons are nicer. We're seeing those 3D sculpted shields. I think at this point, if you're a completist, going back makes sense. But if you're somewhat casual, there's gonna be some, like, this is the thing that I sort of suggest to people. If you're getting into Mythic Legions, right? Pick a couple that you can buy right now, like that are in stock at eCollectibles or Big Bad Toy Store or Horsehead Toys or wherever. Those are the ones that I could think of off the top of my head that have in stock Mythic Legions. Grab a couple that are in stock because that'll be the best price you're going to get on them. If you love them, great. You can always add and then get a couple pre-orders in and hurry up and wait. But going back is like, if you need a specific character or a specific figure, go for it. But if you're like, I need more goblins, so I'll go back and get more goblins. Well, there's gonna be more goblins in the future. So going back to get some.
Adam, no, that's terrible advice. What you do is you go to Chase Capital, you take out a 500, then you go to Bank of America, you take out another card, then you go to you're right, and that's the issue is that. I've seen people be like, I'm in terrible financial debt now. I'm like, maybe you shouldn't have paid $600 for that figure then, So, but, they really, really want that completionist and plug it in. But you're right. That's pretty sound advice is that they've shown the trend that they are. Heck, the Headless Horseman's a perfect example of that too. And that's modern. Yeah, look at that dude. Oh, he's really cool.
I say that with a Sir Valgard, which is the original Kickstarter exclusive in my collection. Right, so in some respects, you do go back and get some of the figures.
We're all hypocrites. It's okay.
I'm pretty confident they're never going to re-release this. But even if they do, like, I didn't pay like the market price for this. I got really lucky when I acquired this. I've only gone back for a few. I went back for Balaam. I went back for Thistlethorn.
Yes.
The last figure that I would go back for right now, like as of today, although I'm really hoping that he's a little more successful in All-Star 6 than he was in All-Stars 5, is the Elf Ranger. That's the last of my big three that I really, really want. That being said, like I mentioned, there's enough 2.0 elf figures and kind of more coming. The War of Aetherblade figures are coming very soon.
Yes.
That Father Christmas in the retailer wave has a 2.0 body, which I intend to actually. I'm buying that figure.
It's a different body from version 1, or
no,
or
it's
just
same body.
Same body. Oh, but it's a 2.0. But it's a 2.0 body. It's just like, okay, cool. Yeah. Oz,
in Adam's green colors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Adam, sorry.
Elven green.
Oz, did you want to show us your unknown one?
The unknown one. As I've said, my lighting is not the best this morning with that, but I've been letting these gentlemen talk a lot without much to say because I've just been enjoying playing with my unknown one, which just showed up yesterday. And I mean,
he's
great. My God, yes. I love these, how stable they are.
Yeah.
NECA maybe you should make a phone call and see how wings should be done.
Ooh.
So just I got to, because
I see you left the helmet on instead of the skull head.
Well, I've got the retail, or the recently released one, which doesn't come with the skull head.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, see, no soft goods down here.
Oh, I see. Are his eyes red too? Because mine,
yes.
I absolutely love that red deep eye glow in there. Yeah,
I'm gonna try to see if
it's
it'll
really
come
hard
up on the camera.
It's really, you gotta get a light in there.
But they are red, and I love that. The fact that there's paint under there for this helmet, that attention
really cool.
to detail, and like. Again,
Oz, do you have the bio card there with you?
It just came with here. Let me see. So I've got the little insert from the tray.
Yeah.
And of course the backing card.
Can you read his name on there?
All right, hang on.
This is a test.
One.
This is a test of the American education
system.
Read it again.
But
the unknown one.
That's the whole point, isn't it? He's unknown.
No, they did a typo. Yeah.
Spell it out.
No, uncount one.
The uncount
one. Holy crap! I didn't even see that. Yeah.
See what happens when we don't put taxes into public education, folks.
It's a dialect,
right? For real.
You Canadians are so good at reading.
That's like it's kind of a running joke, because like not only was the con exclusive the uncount one, but they didn't catch it in time for the production of those cards either. So they were produced at the same time, so it wasn't like it was 2 times they made that mistake.
But I mean, I'm loving this. Like, absolutely,
no, he's phenomenal. Yeah. The mace Morningstar he comes with is awesome too. The actual chain, like, he's phenomenal.
And he's got a different neck peg, so his head's actually shorter to make him look stockier and scarier, I guess. Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, he doesn't come with some of those things, of course, because again, this is the regular release version. They managed to make sure.
I'm not trying to rub this in your face, okay? Like, that's
oh no, not at all.
I had no idea. I'm sorry. Oh, you didn't get this either, huh?
This version because you've got that first release.
No, I'm pretty sure it's only the skull. It's just the skull that you're missing.
The skull.
Yeah, it has the short neck peg.
So that cloth, the cloth bit they handed it outside at the convention. They gave you the thing, and then they handed it. So while I was walking through the hallways, there's these little skirts all over the place because people are just literally. But it's not it. You're not really that missing out. It feels like they were up late cutting that piece out of like some sort of. It's not the best piece of cloth. It's cool to have it added on, but yeah, it's a gorgeous figure, man.
So in other words, everyone enable everyone.
Well, I gotta show and tell too. Ken.
Go ahead, Dom.
Trying. So this is kind of like a snapshot of how we buy to collect, right? So like we've got Mythic Legions in the center there, but you can see this is our vampire faction as my boys and I play it. So we added some avatar dogs in here. So I was like, well, those are disgusting cool dark hounds, and like the Corvus Blade guy absolutely looks like some sort of vampire hunter, or a hunter of for the vampires. And then speaking of McLaughlin, we added these vampires in here too. Is just some sort of like, I think my boys and I said they're half demon, half vampires, and actually Payne's toy sample sent us one, so we got a third one to our army. And then why not have Demona from the Gargoyles join the forces?
That too, actually, right? she looks natural right there.
And I had Bronx, but the boys hated having Bronx as a bad guy, so we actually moved him to the good guys. I was like, okay, got it. And then more of the actual Mythic Legions. But then I was playing with this dude too from the Black Order. I was like, well, that's a cool kind of vampiric caster too. So he's a magic user. And then you got some lycanthropes there, and then this weird thing from the movie, but that's a cool vampire gargoyle. So this is why when I see a figure that I'm like, I need this to go into my faction. I need to, like, this is a great, cool new whatever for us to be able to play into. So and that is worse than completionists, I think, because there's no stopping. Like, it'll just
those Wetworks vampires in the back.
Yes,
I know. I saw that too.
I've been looking for mine.
They're really great, man. They're cool. They're limited articulation, like the wrist turn and all, but they're really fun for goons to be able to toss around there. And I ended up with 3 of these Toy Biz. Get out of the way, you Blackhearts, and we use those as just like some sort of demons. So like,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, and
he totally fits.
Oh my god, they're really fun. And then my D&D side, these are lenticular cards that you use for 5e spells. So I'm not really keen on Magic, but my boys love it. So like, I can't keep up with spells. So here you go, guys. So I give them the cards and they learn these spells and they actually just like, well, I'm going to use Knock, Dad. And they drop the spells and use them. And it's really easy for me if I have a caster because I'm like, I'm not that creative with spells. So I just issue out a bunch of spells to them. Like, yeah, he's got Warding Bond. And I can look in the back on what it does. So yeah, so our universe is built to play. And like, that's how, when I see like a goblin alchemist come out in the new wave, and my oldest son loves to craft in games, I'm like, well, we're definitely getting an alchemist. So
yeah.
That's amazing, Dom.
It gets worse when you start doing pop and swaps too.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Because I look at the Furious 4 and I've already sort of told myself that Fury Clan doesn't do anything for me. But I'm like, but the red fabric arms and legs.
Yes, 100%.
I mean, I don't need the armor from the other one, but the red fabric, I'm like, man. I'm like, maybe it'll come back around on another figure where I want more of the parts. Like that's where I get FOMO, is like if there's a part on a figure that I would love to use. But that's where you get into a really slippery slope, because then it's like, well, how many sets do I need? Do I need to buy two? One for the complete figure and one for
like
the parts?
Marauders, like put a part spin out there and just like, I'm going to buy a chest, I'm going to buy an arm. Like that would be amazing if they did something like that. But again, I think, and I don't know because I'm very ignorant, I think they just do that to really cut down on any overhead costs. Like they don't, you know what I mean? They don't want to pay for any storage space, so it's out and then it's gone. So, but yeah, I love the Marauders of like build and play. Like then you could just get whatever colors of that type of arm. That'd be fantastic.
Well, that's a whole nother thing, is like customizing your Mythic Legions. Like I haven't started down that path yet, but like I did think, like if I didn't want to buy all 4 of the Furious 4, like, you know, like Dorklair and a bunch of others did, could I display 2 of them, keep the heads, and then keep the weapons, and then put them on a different body and still have like kind of an ad hoc Furious 4 at this particular period of time. And I do want to also, before I forget, to remind everyone, Mega J Retro will be back next week. We will do a stream, and tentatively Silver K will be joining us. We will be doing a giveaway on that stream. After this live stream, I will put up the video announcing the giveaway. People need to comment on that video. I do apologize in advance because Mega J and I tried to do that a few weeks ago and say comment on the stream we were on, but then there was confusion about commenting in the live chat versus in the comment section. So we've reset the slate. I can't exactly go back to that live chat and check all the names. So the patrons got an advance window to comment. For those of you like Payne's and K-Dog who haven't commented yet, it's already in your emails. And Brick, that's right, you're a patron as well. But that doesn't matter. You can comment anytime. I just give the patrons a few days extra window to comment. It doesn't change the odds or anything to that effect. But so there'll be a week to comment on this, and then Mega J will do the giveaway next week. We'll draw 3 names for 3 prizes to give away. So that's a quick aside. Just stay tuned for after this stream. I'll make that the giveaway announcement live, and then I'll monitor the comment section, and we'll spin the wheel in 7 days time to do this. All right, gentlemen, I do want to kind of just throw the loaded question out there. Maybe not so loaded, because I think I kind of know the answer already. And Adam, I'm going to make you answer first because you're kind of licking your chops. But do we follow, like, do you follow the lore of Mythic Legions, or do you sort of just headcanon it and buy what looks cool?
Yes and yes. So I
no further questions, Your Honor.
Objection.
So, like, to answer the first part, you know, I go back to like my thing of when I go down a rabbit hole, I go deep. I know almost all the names. I know most of the bios, not as in depth as a lot of people do, because I had to like pack it into kind of learning it as quickly as I could, because I don't like to jump into a line and just sort of be ignorant about what it is. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just, for me, that's how I am. So I know more of the lore than a lot of people that have been doing this for years and years and years, because that's just in my nature. That being said, because I've already said, you know, I'm not doing Fury Clan, I'm not doing this, that, and the other thing, I kind of pull the bios, I pull the names, like I'll keep the names in the headcanon, and I'll keep the bios, and I'll kind of keep the factions. But like something like, you know, that Father Christmas, is going to get adapted. I know it's a Figura Obscura, but he's going to be like Zylona's Flock mage type character.
Yeah.
Because why have him on the outside looking in when there's room in my headcanon for him? And other things like that, right? Like things like, orc head on a 2.0 body. It doesn't exist in the line, but why wouldn't there be, a more slender orc? Why wouldn't there be a larger goblin, right? Like because you can swap these things, there's kind of no limit. You're not limited to the headcanon. With a lot of lines that, you run into where parts aren't interchangeable and stuff like that, and there's a huge, massive lore behind it. Yeah. It's harder and harder to kind of have a headcanon and have it make any sense because you start kind of stepping on toes and things like that.
You can't unsee it either. You can't unsee Megatron. You can't unsee. Yeah, no, yeah, 100%.
I can't unsee Megatron.
Like a good guy, right?
At all times of day, I can't unsee Megatron. I can stare at the fat Snoopy here. I still can't unsee Megatron.
That's a different issue.
Yeah, it's a whole different issue. Sorry, Fat Snoopy. I keep calling you Fat Snoopy, but well, you are fat. You're heavy.
Shaming that Snoopy, man.
I'm not. Like, look, everyone knows. Everyone sees him on my bed. Like, they're like, oh, this guy sleeps with a stuffed doll. They clearly do. All right. Quickly here, Robert Monti, thank you for the very generous super chat here. Very generous, actually. Much appreciated. So 2010, Moth 2 Classics got Robert back into collecting. And when the Advent Kickstarter came, he started on specific factions. And that's kind of what I wanted to get into with this next bit. 2021, he met the legend Jeremy Gerard at Legions Con, and he did a commissioned custom figure of Robert. That's awesome. Robert, if you ever want to share that you probably shared it somewhere on social media. I probably just haven't had a chance to see it yet. And he comments that the community is amazing. And I truly do feel that 4 Horsemen, Mythic Legions, Jeremy and company, they've kind of set that like niche within a niche community. That I think if others could follow, like, as Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, gets a bit more traction and kind of that similar like fantasy type of genre, could they build kind of a community as well, right? Like the fact that Savage Crucible, right? The Kickstarter is live now.
Defenders of Eden,
right?
Shout out though to Walter Hagen, who runs the Cabal, which is sort of the Facebook group for Mythic Legions. Because I've chatted with him about it, because being an admin in a couple other groups for a couple other lines, like that group, the size that it is, for how positive it is, like that's not by accident. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's a really good team of guys.
It's cultivated well,
that are doing a really, really good job of a really, really hard job. I don't think people realize how hard it is to navigate, a group like that and to keep it positive. It is not easy.
Adam, you're part of Canadian Toy Gallery, which I've been running for the past since fall of 2019, so 3.5 years. It can be very difficult to manage a toy group. I've watched you manage several, so and I know, like with Mythic Legions, they've now got Legions Con, right? Like that's kind of the dream of independent companies, that you could possibly have a like in-person, event like that. And I think Oz, you're going to this year's Legions Con with some friends.
Yes, I'll be going with Sean and Jesse.
Yeah, so there you go. Okay. Anyone else got anything to add about headcanon?
I just quickly wanted to mention that just like Robert, like I lean towards a couple factions, and it's easier for me to pass on a figure when it's in a faction that's not really my thing. It's also easier to sort of, if there is a figure in a faction that I'm not a big fan of, it's easier to pick it up and sort of add it to the headcanon, because it doesn't have to.
So those of you who've seen like my history videos on like Transformers, G.I. Joe, LJ and WWF Superstars, for those who've seen those history videos I've done, I have been somewhat tempted to do like a similar thing, but like not like a year by year history video like I've been doing for those other toy lines, but like a factions one. Like, here's House of the Noble Bear, everything you need to know about House of the Noble Bear. And I'll only have limited figures, and then obviously I'll like pull images from Source Horseman website, or maybe I could ask Trevor if I could use some of his photos, and then just sort of like credit it there. But I've been thinking about doing like a factions type of thing, where I kind of explain like as it is on the Source Horseman website and on some of the bios, and kind of my own like interpretation if something is clearly made after a Motu character. I've been thinking about doing that, but like these kinds of videos occupy a lot of mental bandwidth, research, and all that. But looking at how active the chat is, looking how passionate all of you look on screen, like Adam, you've shared your exclusive figure. We've looked at Dom's collection. We've looked at Oz's unknown one and
uncounted one,
right? And Rick, if you have anything you want to show, I mean,
my troll's sleeping, so
you showed the troll right before right beforehand, right? I've kind of got Arethyr in frame here.
I've got a ton here, so
like it just shows that like there is a shared audience for this, right? Like one of my concerns coming in is like I've never covered really Mythic Legions, other than like the one video I did on the Headless Horseman comparison, but that's Figura Obscura. That's not really, it's kind of Mythic Legions officially, although people will display them one and the same. So I was like, I wonder how this stream's gonna go, but like everyone's really active in the chat right now and everyone's really passionate on screen, so I guess there's a lot of love for it.
There's definitely a lot of love, and I think maybe to go back to sort of the whole headcanon of it all, it's like I love my nerds and I'm a nerd, but sometimes man, it's tough when folks get like when you're sort of saying, oh, Mythic Legions, and then there's Figura Obscura, and that's kind of not really together. I struggle with that because I think I'm like that other side of Dom's camera of just like, here's a bunch of figures, and these are the things I like, and they kind of work together. And I think I'm sure it was one of your channels where I said at one point, you said, I'm definitely a Star Wars fan. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, all those, but I'm also a toy fan. So like I'm a fan of toys. And so when I see folks like Dom kind of like, here's a bunch of different toys and they're going to work together and we're going to play and we're going to do this, like that's where I come back around to it. And of course I'm kind of like aesthetically driven. So they got to look cool.
Yes, very much. Yeah.
So in my head, it's very much like what looks cool and can play together, I think is kind of like the basic formula. That said, I love stories too, but I think, I don't know about you, Ken, but me, as I sort of get older, my head gets filled. My head is overfilled with stories, right? Like somewhere in there's like a bunch of back issues of Marvel Universe back in the day and DC's Who's Who and a bunch of Star Wars stuff and EU characters. And after a while, it's like, yes, I love all that stuff. But when I think about like how I ended up playing and collecting, like if I was only a G.I. Joe person, then why would I, look over here and go like, oh, what's this new He-Man thing that's going on? Or, like I am just open to this sort of like the fun and aesthetics of it all. And I feel like when we get a little bit caught up in the, well, I got my Figura Obscura and I can't mix them in. It's like, it kills me a little bit. It does kill me a little bit because while I understand it's important to sort of recognize the distinction. When I look at what the Four Horsemen are doing, they've, again, to go back to the Lego of it all, they've created a system. And I've heard them use that word. But when they started hearing more and more about this talk of systems, I was like, oh, these dudes play Lego or something's going on there. Because it's kind of like, can you imagine a kid getting a space set and a pirate set from Lego and then being like, no, but I can't take this head and put it here. And I can't use this piece over here because those are two separate worlds. And I'm like, no, that's kind of the beauty.
Look what Dom just did.
Well, right. And I think I just go ahead, Dom.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I agree. I have limits, like storytelling wise, where I can't mix. I couldn't mix pirate flintlocks with my space dudes, like in my brain, unless I was going for some sort of like that's the aesthetical style of like like a 1950s camp or whatever, and that's the stylistic choice overall, and that's really cool. Like you've seen space Roman legions before too, and that's cool. But for me, there's definitely a hard line. Like no, that's sci-fi. And my oldest is very strict. He's like, that's a laser gun. Get that out of here. I'm like, I know, just pretend. No, like Trapjaw has to have the clamps. He won't let the laser in there, right? So he has that distinction of like, Dad, we're playing fantasy right now. If you want to play sci-fi, we'll go play G.I. Joes. I'm like, all right. So we fall into the genres of our scales, right?
I initially had a hesitation to Animal Warriors of the Kingdom because I saw the guns in the accessories, and I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't. And then I read the first issue of the comic, and I was like, this all makes perfect sense. I'm all in, and
it's amazing what happens in our heads. Yeah.
If it's the accepted in that story, right? So they had to justify it in their story, but when I was a kid, I'd sit down with someone. They're like, "Yeah, the pirate ship comes over the spaceship." I'm like, "Well, we're done here, right?" So I guess that's my snobbery. But the
I guess I
influence
need a new friend.
Yeah, you play and have fun wrong. But to Rick's point, like the stories, I steal stories sometimes when I'm like dry and like the boys like, let's play something. I'm like, I can't just smash stuff. So what are we gonna do? I was like, well, let me borrow, and I'll like steal from like what was the Black Company. I read this by Glenn Cook recently, and like it's a mercenary company. So I'm like, what did they do? Oh yeah, they had this thing in a tomb. Okay, and so we just kind of recreate that. But they're both storytellers too, so they go off in this rampant, and like next thing I know, Tristan's like, they steal the heart of the forest. Now the forest is dying. And he like flipped these towels and like covered up our grass. I'm like, well, this is awesome. So the storytelling piece is absolutely how I buy, and that just like continuously rolls over.
Yeah, me too.
And like that the Mythic Legions do have lore. Like I thought I was the same way too. Like, what's the stories here? But if you actually go and look online, especially now they put all the bios up, there's an ongoing story by wave. Like, oh, this happened and then this happened, but you have to read it all and kind of connect the dots. But like I said earlier, like I don't know who these people, like, to answer your question, Ken, like this is like I don't know, man. Like, you know, like this is my absolute favorite villain they have ever produced. He is so wicked. Whoop, that thing's in the way here. He is just so wicked, and like the face and the leather, and like so every time and he comes. Well, the boys didn't like the Falcon with them because I thought it was a good guy, so I gave him one of Thor's crows to give it to him, right? So just more menacing, but I won't let him die because he's such a good villain. So I gave him Misty Steps, and wherever he gets pinned down, he just Misty Steps through a wall and escapes. So he's right now the ongoing returning villain in our games that we've got going on right now. So canon, Ken, no, sorry, we are creating our own future. Like my boys will never know who this character is. They'll only be like, oh yeah, that was the guy. Like when they're in their 20s, they're like, oh yeah, that was the guy who helped resurrect the Baron from his tomb and whatever. Like that's what we're establishing now as our own future nostalgia through these characters. So
fair enough. Well, that's, you know, I just love how you play with your boys on that. You know, I can't get my boy into this. He usually builds his Lego tanks and then he asks me to pull out some Transformers, which are his anyway, and then we end up going like robots versus tanks, like on pretty much several nights a week. But if I could get him into this, it'd be great.
Real quick. Oh, sorry, just don't get me wrong on the whole headcanon thing, because again, I respect the stories. I love it, and it's not even just that they have like bios and a story. There's like a full-on creation myth going on, and because of like a world, and it's fascinating. Absolutely. And I love it. I just, it's more for me. It's like I don't want it to sort of get in the way of my experience of these toys, because I think aside from that, and it's kind of established, I think these guys are like full-on visual artists and sculptors too. And I think in many ways, like I gotta just be into like, oh, I am not a knight person, but when they create like really cool armor that like makes me pay attention, I was like, okay, you've accomplished something there with the visuals, and like I don't need to know his name, just give me. But
well, that's you did a video with the 5K toy, which I still haven't gotten, the boar and the wolf, and that's a perfect example. There's nothing attached to that, and you bring it in. There it is, man. Like I'm so jelly. And
real quick, I walked in this morning. One of my kids has been in here because one of my trolls was petting the wolf.
That's one caveat. We play with Mythic Legions, and like some people are like, are you serious? And like, there's one caveat is that they can only play Legions when I'm there, and they've gotten really smart, especially some of the earlier ones that have thin, about not like grabbing the weapon. I'm like, hey man, grab the forearm. Like, oh, okay, because I'm afraid of the wrist joints, right? So they grab the forearms and they articulate, and they know that's like, hey dad, like it's so funny. My 5-year-old like put his hand on me. He's like, you should put some hot water on that joint. I'm like, thank you, son, because it was really stiff. And I was like,
my daughter asked me that too. Is he gonna get a hot bath? Can I?
So like mid play, he's like, dad, don't risk it. So Mythic
Connor has just learned about that.
Hot tub toy machine.
There's only one other very specific toy line that I'm like, I don't even play with this. It's the 21st century tanks. They're so freaking brittle. But everything else, like my room, if I were to show you, Ken, is a hot mess right now, because there's a forest here, there's a cave, there's a spaceport, and then the Black Company has a permanent setup where they're at, where their little headquarters is. It's just like story after story is dragged out here, because I'll come home from work, I'm like, guys, we never picked up the vampires. Like, yeah, but now we got this demon cave. I'm like, that's really cool though.
That's awesome. Love that.
I don't know this one with any certainty, but Trevor's here and Bill from Dorklayer are both in the chat or were, so maybe they can confirm or deny this. But to the best of my knowledge, and I'll give I'll be making a point with this. To the best of my knowledge, the sculptor and the guys behind the lore are somewhat different people. I mean, they're all the same. They're all the same guys. It's all 4 Horsemen Studios. But the head sculptor sculpts what he likes, and then it gets sort of put into canon, right? I believe. I mean, it could be that one guy's doing all of it, but I'm pretty sure that Eric is doing most of the sculpting, and then I think Cornboy is kind of primarily the lore guy. I'm not 100% certain on that. But the point being, they're doing what we're doing.
Sure. Oh, sure. Yeah.
They're essentially
the world building,
working at their like the official lore is somebody's headcanon.
Yeah.
Right. It's not as though like we kind of make it like, and somebody said it in the comment, right? The play patterns that we used as a kid, i.e. sort of your own headcanon and having different lines. There's people now like adult collectors that see it as a sin, you know, like it's you've crossed a line when you say that bad guy is a good guy. And it's sort of like, why? Like you're just not allowing yourself to sort of
I mean, like, it's the same people who are threatened that I like new Star Wars, so therefore that crap's in the old Star Wars. Like it doesn't, you can like both and be perfectly happy and coexist.
I think I was just gonna say that like if you go back, whether we're talking Masters of the Universe or G.I. Joe, those started as products, like this idea for like this thing, and then after the fact they're like, you know, you've probably seen that you've heard this story, but the notion of like, oh yeah, did I tell you we've got a comic book coming? And it's like, oh yeah, Filmation, we're doing a cartoon. All those things came after the fact, and actually, so they had the creation for say He-Man. They make this toy, it's ready to go, and then they end up with a retailer who like wants entertainment. They're like, oh yeah, we're doing a comic book, so they go and actually make mini comics. And then like about a year later, they're totally coming with a completely different story, and they're changing it up. And it's like, at what point, where were those nerds who were going, no, you can't do that because I saw one time in the mini comic that he wasn't a prince. Like no. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think to name that the creators do essentially what we're doing. They just, you know,
they just do it officially.
And they do it first, and they do it officially, and whatever.
And they're not beholden to a company or shareholders to be like, no, it has to have. It's not twisted. They're like, I just want to. Like they're expressing their imagination. They're slapping stories together. It's great, you know.
But they are like, even when they're doing it, it's not like they're taking it totally seriously. But then we, as kids, or maybe in the future as older kids, have kind of like, have taken it and sort of turned it into this like reified thing. But it's like, come on, man. These are a bunch of like grown folks sitting around going like, hey, can we get away with the name Seaman? No. Let's Merman. Like a lot of those they're just joking around. Like, what about He-Man? Like he's really buff. And yet, you know, here we are getting upset that they're changing it, which then, you know, it leads to all sorts of problems. When the 87 movie comes out, people are like, wait, that's not my He-Man. Then 2000X comes out. That's not my He-Man.
You had CGI, a really good discussion on that, Brick, when you went through the art of, and you were talking about that, like, I like this new style, like this. Like, I see very eye to eye with you on that, where I'm like, I used to crap on that. Like, Sigma 6 is a perfect example. G.I. Joe, I was like, oh, this is disgusting. But then my buddy was like, no, look, man, this bat's awesome. And then blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh yeah, right. That is cool. And like, especially now when I'm not adhering to any canon, I'm just like, look at this cool thing. Like, look at these cool venom wings. They're gonna figure out how to put on somebody. Like, you know, like when you're not adhering to that and you're more open-minded or free about that. If you want to just completion or collect because you love that line, I don't crap on that either. But 100%, I'm all just like whatever fills the store, whatever I can like look and be like, oh, I know what I can use this for. So you
know, at the end of the day, your toys are supposed to be fun. Toys are meant to be played with. You know, that's what they're here for. That's what we did with kids. That's why we like collecting them now. Toys are fun. And Toy Story summed it up the best. You know, Andy held nothing sacred amongst his toys. They all existed in one shared universe in his room, in his head.
He played wrong though.
He was
a great example.
How are you going to keep these two apart? I mean, come on.
They shouldn't. Oh yeah.
Are those? Let's have a look at those.
Yeah, I mean, you got that tongue. He's like, hey.
He's gonna pick his nose.
He's gonna pick his wet nose, because if you know these Vargs, they've got that wet, shiny detail on the nose.
Yes, the eyes are. Yeah. Oh man, you're right. Yes. Yep. Well, some of my favorite channels in IG that I follow are most of the guys who build like huge space stations, or they're just like cobbling stuff together and making their own figures. Like that stuff. Like we just did one last Thursday, which was a creator shout out, and like that's what we're focusing on, was like people who are making their own worlds in canon, like like seeing how they put this stuff together. Like that is so creative and just like this imagination output that like it's more. I watch toy reviews, and so I'm not dogging in that, but like that is such an amazing use of your toys, and like it just like I'm constantly just like, tell me more, like what is that, how did you come up with that? Like I love that stuff, love it.
Those are the new I forget the business term, but you know, it's the new way to play. You know, we're not out there, you know, as actively. I mean, those of us with kids are probably more actively taking the toys out and actually playing with them and everything.
Oh, you know? Don't get me wrong. I was doing this before I had children a few years ago. So, and when they're grown up and too cool for me, I will continue doing this. So,
there's no problem with that. Absolutely, keep it going, man. Keep that inner child alive, because the world's a dark place and you need some joy in it. And
hey, Ken, sorry to interrupt, Oz. Ken, can you just bring up Damon's comment, and Oz, continue, and then I want to touch on Damon's comment.
So, you know, have fun, find joy where you can, and play with your toys, have fun. And I'm not crapping on mint on card collectors. If that's what brings you joy, keep on going with it. Some of these, you know, figures do look beautiful in the package as they are. But I absolutely love spending time with my son and playing with these toys and sharing these experiences with him. And his imagination drives my own.
Yeah.
You know, and that's great, because as you get older, it's proven that we lose some of that. And so to get it refreshed with, you know, somebody so youthful today, it's like, I would have never thought of that. That's fantastic.
It kills my bank account. It kills my bank account. I go to Walmart. I'm like, Dad, that guy, they found a Fortnite figure. Like, that guy would be perfect to fit in with here. Blah. I was like, oh, that's $25 I'd never thought to spend. Thanks. But yeah, now we've got this guy who's now a blood work. I'm like, he's awesome. So yeah.
As you wish.
Yeah.
As you were. Yeah.
I think Damon kind of sums it up perfectly here. He said people have a hard time appreciating a story if it does not match their story. And I think, you know, we're not going to get into it. I don't want to get into it, but like in a weird way, that it's not just the story, right? Like we see this when like Hasbro releases a figure, right? And they're like, well, that's not my version of Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes was mentioned in the comments here too. That's not my version of Scarlet or my version of Duke. And therefore it's wrong. And it's not a good, you know, there's a weird misappropriation between opinion and like objectivity, right? Like where there's sort of like, if it doesn't fit my narrative, then it's inherently bad. And my philosophy, you know, not just in toy collecting, but in things in general, just because I like it or don't does not make it bad or good. There's no connection between those things. I'm allowed to like whatever I want.
I've said that on Ken's channel, I've said that on multiple channels. Like I don't understand that conflict, and like it does like the Classified's a perfect example of that. Not to derail this off of that, but it's a perfect example of like they knocked that Storm Shadow figure. I was like, wow, why is that so controversial? I got on my hands like, this is an amazing figure. Like this toy is objectively phenomenally sculpted and like well done, and like people dragged it through. I was like, all you want is a rinse and repeat of the exact same thing as a kid. There's no innovation, there's no imagination, there's no retelling, there's no room for new characters. And for me, I'm like, I don't need another Snake Eyes. Like I don't need another Cobra Commander. And like that, honestly, going back to Ten's original intro, was that drove me away from IP and into third party or Kickstarter stuff. Because I was like, ooh, this is fresh. Like, ooh, look at Marauders. Yeah, like, oh, like no baggage. Like, yeah, absolutely. Drove me to new and innovative toys. and no character association. So yeah, that's where I went.
I think we should mention though too, like in the same way that because I'm with you, Dom. Like I want the GI Joe classified line to be evolutions of the ones that I had as a kid.
Yes.
It's like of the vintage figures, but there is very much a camp that wants them to be a 6-inch, like an upscaled 3 3/4 figure.
No, you're 100%.
Both are fine. And
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of competing, right? Because like whose voice is being heard more?
Yeah.
Because maybe Hasbro's listening to one over the other. I think there's room for both because,
Definitely.
again, we don't have to buy everything. Like I don't have to buy every retro carded figure because it's a more vintage inspired one. I can just get the updated one. Like, you know, at the end of the day, it's sort of like we're arguing over things.
Yeah.
And I say we. I mean, I typically
the community
don't get
people,
involved, but
I back out of those conversations. There's no room to argue.
People get really
Mattel's
on
doing that
idea.
Sorry. Yeah.
And it's sort of detrimental to sort of the whole, right? Because you know, in the same way, like we're talking about, you know, you moved away from IPs into more sort of loose lines.
Yeah.
That was one of the big appeals for me with Mythic Legions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge appeal for me with Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. Like these lines that, you know, don't have 30, 40, 50, 60 years of history behind them. Kind of opens up the possibility for something new, something fresh, something
Mattel
different.
does a good job of packaging their Masterverse with like, you got classic Beastman, but oh look, you also got, and they put on like the extra stuff, or like the cultist Triclops. I'm like, this is genius of splitting your demographic down the middle, and still and it's so genius because you can bump up the price a little bit, but you appeal to two audiences simultaneously without making two figures that are going to sit on a peg. I was like, man, that is so clever. And like I'm in. I love it. Here. I actually like the newer stuff. Yeah, I like the newer stuff. Kits on top of them. So like, and then the more deluxe ones come with like the modification. Like Beastman's a perfect example, and like Triclops and Trapjaw. I was like, oh, this is genius. And because I kind of want my classics, but I love.
Well, even the one he held up comes with like a face mask and all these new pieces too.
Yeah, see, he's got everything from parts of the original figure, parts of the mini comic version with the belt and the neck feathers, and then he's got the jetpack. He's got this new mask. He's got, you know, the staff of Avion. I can make 3 different versions of Stratos out of just this one figure for one price.
Yeah.
And this isn't even deluxe. He's regular.
Yep. So,
and to speak to what Ken was saying earlier with the Furious 4, like, let's be real. What that means for some collectors is I'm going to buy 3 and I'm going to display them 3 different ways. And so Mattel's like, okay, that's a good problem. Yeah, sure. Go for it.
And
I think that's where I trip a little bit on that stuff. And you were bringing up the sort of like 3.75 or like the purist kind of like old Snake Eyes versus a new Snake Eyes. And there's this sort of sense of competing or this kind of like false tension. Whereas when that happens, I don't think people realize is that there's the potential of souring the entire thing. Right. And I say that as someone who's like really into Star Wars and sees that sort of happening right now where the negativity kind of becomes a weight around the entire deal. And there's people sort of in like falsely, I think, interpreting these like this tension where it's like, oh yeah, no, there's the Mandalorian and they're totally trying to get rid of the sequel series by, you know, it's like, no, it's all Star Wars. It's all Lucasfilm. They're all like trying to make money in all ways. So that's where I go to tie it back to maybe the intro, this notion of like when the Four Horsemen created Mythic Legions, at least in my mind, and I'm not like the perfect toy historian, it created this moment where I think it's challenging what it means to be a toy collector and a toy maker, in the sense that in the past, it was all about the way that we did toys was we tied it to an IP and we sold kids on this thing and they fell in love with it. So they became lifelong consumers and would buy those things. Mm-hmm. But when the Four Horsemen came, again, I think they're maybe taking a page from Lego. I don't know how conscious that is or not, but it's like, we're going to focus on making the best toy possible. Yes, there's some story that we want to do there. and we're going to spare no expense. We are going to like design these things. We are going to think about the engineering. We're going to think about the longevity of these figures, and that we can like pop and swap and do all these things. And at the end of the day, like, I don't know, it comes back to what you're saying about the cabal. We have a fan base who's just really into this product. Yes, there are definitely people who are into the lore, but that doesn't get in the way of sort of loving this product and being excited about what's coming next. Where it's like, I can't imagine, I hope we don't get to the point where the Four Horsemen release like a next version, a version 2 or version 3 of a character, and people are like, no, that's wrong, that one's horrible, give me the old one. But instead, to revisit what I said earlier, every time they create new versions, people should be just excited about like, oh my god, they're stepping it up, and there's these new parts and there's new pieces, and I think that's where it's funny, especially, you know, with the April 1st Masters of the Universe line ending looming in some people's minds, because that's been brought up, right? I know I'm just going to go there for a second. But let's be real. Like, if you're one of the big twos, if you're Hasbro or Mattel, you get used to a certain level of attention and consumption, right? That you almost like your hands are tied. Like, I need this to sell like millions of units or else. Yeah. And now you're dealing with big retailers who are also like, I need you to sell this number of units or else you can't play anymore in my store. So to go back to the intro, it's like Mythic Legions was like, we're going to create these things that we love, and then we're going to offer it directly to the consumer with a Kickstarter. Bam. And then we develop this huge fan base, and no one's going to Target or whatever. And people actually are forced to be patient because we're like waiting. It's like, when's that going to come again? Like, and we're waiting and we're waiting. And then when they come, people are like, whoa, check it out. And then, you know, there's this massive fan base around it. And that's completely different from what's going on with Star Wars or with G.I. Joe or even with Transformers, right? It's very different. Yeah. And so I say that because now we've got Spiro, who's like, I got this idea. I'm going to offer it as a Kickstarter. I'm going to drum up interest, and people are waiting, and they get them like, oh my God, look at these things. And then we get Savage Crucible. It's like,
it just keeps going.
I'm going to start off. So this is like a new model, right? And I think Hasbro and Mattel are sitting there trying to, like, Hasbro's like, well, I don't think we're going to be able to do this line anymore. Or, you know, or Mattel's like, maybe, we don't know. April 1st, I don't think this thing's going to live, right? No, I think there's this whole new model of these indies who are like, we have this thing that we're passionate, that we love. The creatives are there along with sort of the business-minded people in where they want to head. Sometimes they're the same one person, right? And at the end of the day, as fans, like, I think we're benefiting from it. I don't like, I'm getting these toys that, as I've said, they get better with each iteration. Wave 1 of AWOC is amazing. Wave 2 was like, whoa. And now I'm looking at what they're coming up with Wave 3. Like, and that's kind of how it should be.
And 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And
right.
And
I think
it just keeps going. Yeah.
I just feel like the landscape has changed.
Yeah.
Go for it, Ken.
I'm just going to pause and read this super chat for a second here. Robert Monti, thanks again for the super chat. He says here, his son is a huge part of the enjoyment, like many of you are saying, with playing with your kids, right? Like, I do this quite a bit as well, maybe in a different manner. But Robert says here, being able to pull out the Motu Classic Castle of Grayskull. Speaking of pricey, large show pieces, and he's got the Snake Mountain. I assume he means the Super 7 Snake Mountain. Well, I guess that's still Motu Classic. So yes, he clearly means the Super 7 one. Enables him to truly enjoy the purchase. Yeah. This goes back to everything that they were saying, that we've been saying in this chat, and a little bit of what you were just talking about here, Brick. I mean, enjoying your purchase, right? And I know that there's a lot of comments in the chat about like gatekeeping and all that. Like, excuse me, each social media group, like whether it's like Facebook or whatnot, like I've seen some of the old school Facebook groups who are very strictly vintage. So when we talk about like not accepting canon, not accepting negativity, not my whatever, not my He-Man, not my Luke Skywalker or whatever, right? I understand it. Like when I see people say, oh, they kind of just took a character, like whether it's He-Man or whether it's, you know, the latest War for Cybertron Transformer series from a couple of years back, that they kind of ruined this or that. Like, I wasn't crazy about the voice acting because they just sounded too different from what I was used to. But at the end of the day, somebody out there liked it. And
are you talking about the Netflix series?
Yes.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It was so good.
There you go. Right.
Oh, it was so good.
I did enjoy it for the animation and the general story progression. The voice acting was very off-putting for me because they sounded too different. But I didn't go out and say that much about it because I know if it's keeping the franchise alive for the next generation, right? If somebody was to go back and say they didn't like Peter Cullen's Optimus voice, would I scream blasphemy? I would. Okay, but I would understand that maybe their Optimus is different, or maybe their He-Man is different, or their Luke Skywalker is different. It's one of those things that I grudgingly have to accept because I'm ingrained a certain way. A lot of us are ingrained a certain way, but we all came from different upbringings, and we all end up getting kind of wired differently, right? So,
I can't let that one go. The episode where Megatron went out and inspected the factory, and the Decepticon workers like, it's Megatron, we're so proud, and like they're cannibalizing their own people just to keep it running to optimal. And he's like, and they're like, oh, praise you, Megatron. And he leaves. He's like, shut it down and kill him. And he had to make a hard leader decision. Like, it was this callous thing.
So there you go, right? Like right there. And I forgot about that moment.
It's so.
I got about 5 more minutes. I'm just saying that.
Sorry, it's Scorponok.
We should probably. I know we could go for hours here as well, but I think some of us have lunch plans here on the West Coast, so we probably shouldn't go for more than about another 5 minutes anyway. But sorry, as we kind of wind things down here, did anybody have anything to sort of like bring up or?
Go buy Animal Warriors of the Kingdom figure.
Oh yeah, real good.
Hero Toys.
Honestly, though, the reason that I say that is because I've been saying this for the last few months. That line is going to blow up, and we're talking about like, oh, we didn't get it on the Kickstarter, and now people are kicking themselves because they got to pay the late fees. I'm telling you, if this line blows up, and when people see some of the stuff that Jason and Jeremy have planned, it's the same thing, right? Kickstarter, the Mythic Legion's first Kickstarter didn't really do much for me. It was knights and skeletons. There was sort of 2 torsos or 3 torsos. Now those are the most expensive figures and the hardest ones to get. People are kind of looking at Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. There's a couple cats, there's a couple monkeys, might not do it for me. Just wait until there's wolves, hyenas, lions, bears, elephants, like, and there's multiple bucks and there's more stuff. And then you're going to be like, oh, I wish I could mix some of those first ones back in. I want them to succeed, and I think they'll succeed. I also don't want people to kind of kick themselves later when they've missed out. Anyway.
I'll just pop that in the chat there. 100%. Thanks for the link.
Ken, I got one shout out for plug for my own channel. Next Thursday, I got Nikki Nicole, who's this amazing customizer and painter, and like I'm so excited to have her come on my show and talk about not only her techniques and customs, but also Savage Crucible. She's been doing the paint after those. So, again, I love having creative artists, people who play, and she's like, so I'm really excited to be able to see her this Thursday and get a,
I'm going to give her a follow on Instagram right now because I typed NIKK, and right off the bat, it was the first one that popped up, followed by a bunch of you.
Her stuff is so good, like ridiculous. So
I don't normally do this. I'm normally the guy that's, saying don't check out my channel and don't watch my channel. But because we're having a Mythic Legions conversation, I'm not going to announce the guest because it's still a little bit tentative, but not, obviously not today. But next Sunday, I think I've got a pretty big guest, pretty cool guest. Nice. And I think it's going to be a pretty fun discussion. I will post about it and people will know once it's sort of set in stone a little bit more, but yeah, it should be a pretty good interview.
Cool.
Nice.
Awesome.
I mean, next Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific.
Awesome. Adam, great to hear. Oz, Brick, what y'all got going on?
Go for it, Oz.
Well, you guys can catch me and Brick as well as Sean and Jesse Arnold. We all do Legions class once a month. And
Eldor.
That's right as well. Masterversal Toy Hunter himself, Eldor. We get together and we do this once a month. So if anybody ever wants to join in on a class, you're more than welcome to come in. But we geek out about Mythic Legions, the lore, the races, factions, and everything. There's a reason we call it class. I was very new to this and just wanted to come in and be like, I need to know more about this. And if I need to know more about this, there are other people who are just like me.
There's no tests and no homework. Just if people are worried when you say class.
I was very concerned, so thank you.
It's okay, but you might get detention if you show up late.
No, you may end up there longer.
Yeah, I watched about 45 minutes of yours on the replay, and there's quite a bit to talk about. You know, Brick's been on there too. You know, it's
great.
It's a permanent panel of hosts, and we will include everybody else on there as well. Like anybody who wants to jump in and see what we got going on. But it's all about talking about just what we've been here talking about today.
All right, cool. Brick.
Just this morning, I released the latest sort of episode of this thing I call the news, and it's really not news, but in it, I bring it up because I was talking about the Savage Crucible and was trying to make this connection of like the Mythic Legions of it all, right, and the Four Horsemen of it all, because Savage Crucible has had the benefit of the person starting up this toy line has been behind this like MAFC, My Action Figures Customs, which has been producing parts for Mythic Legions and has met a bunch of cool sculptors along the way and painters along the way in the Mythic Legion circles, and now has like, oh, who's painting it? Nikki Nicole, one of the most amazing painters.
Yeah. Really
who's doing soft goods? The Strupp Family Craft, right?
Oh,
and
wow.
so it's really like, and I'm just sort of, and D Amazing's doing photos. It's just like, it's this, I guess I'm just excited about this. Like there's the Hasbro and Mattel kind of doing their thing, and there's something really exciting happening now, as Adam was pointing out with AWOC, right? And so anyways, you can check out that episode. There's also a really cool AWOC thing that I did a while back, which is sort of, I think, where we got connected, Adam. Absolutely excited about the line, both for the indie-ness of it and the animals, right? I'm all here for the animals. And so I just wanted to maybe close off with one last, as far as what's coming up, I don't know, subscribe to the channel, check it out. I'm a little bit random. But as far as, there was a comment in there about the CEOs and the publicly traded companies from
I saw
Sunny
that.
Sundries.
And
it was dropping
right
as Adam was sort of talking about, you should support this because, you know, Jason and Jeremy. Like, here's the deal. When you're supporting these indies, you're in touch with the creative folks who are behind these lines, who are making it,
whether they like it or not.
Yeah, and it means so much to them to sort of see this fan base kind of coalescing around the things that they do. And I'll tell you right now, we're seeing it, man. Like the Hasbro CEO can give a shit about what you are buying or not buying, or whether it's the right snake eyes or not the right snake eyes, right?
That's
They're
right.
just looking at numbers.
They just want to do what sells.
Yeah,
that's right.
And you've got these great companies who are super responsive and have, it seems, a full-on commitment to just improving as time comes.
Yep.
So I don't know. I just feel like we're at a fascinating crossroads when it comes to toys. And the other thing I'll say is, you're like, I'm not really into Mythic Legions. I'm not into the fantasy. Okay, well, here's Cosmic Legions. Here's like a million other things that are in the works. There's dinosaurs,
worlds of
armies of
possibilities.
Ashmore. Yep. So it's like, man, like if anybody's gonna waste their time being upset about the toy that isn't right, like then chill, wait for the next one and be happy. That's all I'll say.
All right. Well, I do because somebody made a suggestion on this. It's actually a good idea, and I've seen Mega J do this before as well. I do want to give a bit of an acknowledgement and shout out to the Patreon supporters and channel members of the Toy Connections YouTube channel here. I'm not sure how well that comes up on screen. It's just sort of saved as a Word file. So thank you folks for keeping the channel going and for allowing me to get a new camera and microphone this past a few months ago. Nice. So I'll probably need to get an even better microphone. Say what?
Must be nice.
Well, sort of. I mean, you can talk about enabling here. Brick's something you can see him on the Patreon supporters list, and you can see Ozstradamus Toyz over there on the channel member side of things. Yeah, although mind you, this microphone I have, I could use a bit of an upgrade, but it's not bad for now. So I do want to thank you fine folks for enabling and keeping this channel going. So you have my undying gratitude. Sorry, my screen is somewhat frozen here, so I'm trying to take the okay, there we go. I'm trying to take it off of the screen while we wrap up here. Gentlemen, Gazz, thank you for putting everybody's names in the chat.
Thanks, guys.
I just wanted. I was sorry. Flubbed my thought there for a second there, but just for the all-star moderation in the chat there for Gazz, always putting everybody's channels there. Hopefully we can all subscribe to one another, support one another, make friends, keep enjoying the hobby together. Like I said, I'll be putting up a giveaway video sometime in the next hour, probably less than that. And then we'll do the giveaway stream along with, we've got a topic in mind. We just got to set the panel for next week with Mega J. I believe Silver K is going to join us. And tentatively, it's going to be talking about the Marvel Universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Nice.
And I'm working on a video on that right now, which will come out sometime in the late spring. So, look, everyone, thanks to the panel for joining us today. You can find all their links in the description below or in the live chat feed. And like you all know, you're all welcome to come on anytime. And let's wrap things up. And I'll see you all again soon. Everybody wave goodbye and hold that pose. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having me, Ken. Appreciate it.
Anytime.